Hi guys, and welcome back to Pass the Move. And for today's episode, we are in Spain with Real Madrid, and we'll be trying to give you a tactical and team guide worthy to bring success to your team, of course. Whether you're a Real Madrid fan or not, either way, if you have a career with them, we'll be trying to provide you with the best type of guidance, I guess you could say, in our opinion, anyways. But yeah, so we've already finished off England, Italy and France's top teams, and now we'll be in Spain. We'll be doing Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid and Sevilla, the top 4 teams in Spain. We could possibly venture into Valencia. Let us know if you want to do that. Yeah, otherwise it's just the top 4. As you can see, even the odds are the closest for top 4. If you go outside of that, it's just ridiculous odds. Also, if someone can explain to me why there's 5 promoted teams in the La Liga when it should technically only be 3, I think, that would be great, because I'm still like really confused about that. But anyways, let's just start how I would normally start. So as you can tell from the homepage, or rather the inbox, I've literally done nothing here. So I've just started off just as I would when I start a new career. I haven't planned this, and like I always mention in my episodes, the reason being is to try and just basically do it as naturally as possible. If I plan it, it would maybe come out a tiny bit better, but the whole point is to show you guys how I would do it from the start and just go through the process as if I'm going through the process with you. So the initial thing to do, or the initial thing that I do anyways, is to try and figure out who's worthy of being in the squad and not. And the thing that I do before that is just to actually figure out whose judgment I can trust. Judging of ability, of course, potential would be great, but for now we just need to try and find out the first team's ability, who's ready for the first team and who's not. It looks like Victor Fernandez is your best bet out of the staff. Unfortunately though, it looks like you need some upgrades. Head of youth development, I reckon you can do better, especially with a top team like Real Madrid. But yeah, always take a look at your staff. With a club such as Madrid, you can actually risk firing all of them and bringing in your own staff. So yeah, it's always all about preferences. But of course, I don't have time to bring in staff and whatnot. So we're just gonna have to trust Victor and hope for the best. So we'll have a look at just for the sake of this video. Actually, we'll get rid of all these loanees, I guess. Just send them to the under-19s. As you know, Madrid have an under-19s only, and the rest of the players are in Real Madrid B. They're a second division team, so it's definitely better than sending your players out on loan, I think. You could possibly send other players out on loan when it comes to first division ability if you have a youngster who's ready for the first team. But you kind of have too many numbers in that spot, for example. But otherwise, you've got great facilities, so make use of your own facilities. You don't have this type of advantage in England, let's say, for example. So yeah, take advantage basically. In the Real Madrid B, though, actually we'll have a look at the youngsters later. Let's forget about that. So first up, Fabio Contral, and according to Victor Fernandez, who was the judgment ability of 14, he says Fabio Contral is only a good player for the division. Kiko Casilla is a good player, and Danilo. It looks like everyone here should be ready for the division, is basically the point. Mariano is a striker, he's only considered decent. Vasquez should be ready, Nacho, Danilo. Alright, so we got a decent squad. As you can tell, because of how many world-class players Madrid have, some of the players who have good ability for the division, such as Fabio Contral, he's only got 2 stars, or he's only a decent rating for the senior team. So it's just because of how many world-class players they've got. Of course, Ronaldo in that bunch, I guess. So normally I like to have a squad of 22 players. First 11 of players who are leading ability or more in your first 11, and then the so-called backup 11 are all youngsters who can learn from the first 11, and youngsters with potential, not just youngsters without a point, basically, or without reason. So let's look at the best 11 in this squad and try and make a team out of them. So there we go. This is our first 11. Ronaldo, of course, inside forward, capable of playing as a striker at the same time. Ramos is just a centre back. We all know that. Gareth Bale, anywhere across the just in behind the striker. The winger positions, as well as the advanced or the attacking midfielder rather, because he's more of a shadow striker apparently. Luka Modric, central midfielder, can play as an attacking midfielder, but unlikely we'll need him there. Toni Kroos the other way, central midfielder and defensive midfielder. Casemiro, defensive mid and centre mid as well, much more naturally. Of course, he's a unique player at Madrid, the only defensive midfielder or ball-winning player, I guess you could say. Just as you see them in real life, really. Benzema, striker, false nine. Everyone knows him, of course. Centre back in Rafael Varane as well, and James Rodriguez, the attacking midfielder, capable of playing right wing and left wing, I guess. He is capable of doing a number of different roles. He's been retrained in real life and he's been retrained in the game as well. Dani Carvajal, of course, Madrid's starting right back, and Morata, their backup striker as well. So apparently in our best 11 we've got a couple of options basically. And I would say, just by the looks of it, you could do anything from a 4-2-3-1, like typical top sides, a 4-3-3, and even a 4-4-2. So what I normally like to do is have two tactics set, which is one possession based and one direct style of play. These are just options for you. I don't normally do it in my actual saves. I like to have my team stick to a certain style, so don't take these videos as being you should train in one direct and one possession based tactic. That's obviously up to you, but I like to lean to either one and not just have both options, because that's a little bit, you need to have a definitive style basically, is my opinion anyways. If you have both, then you kind of like trying to buy two different types of players and all the squad building issues. So we're gonna have a look at what my assistant thinks is the best formation. He thinks a 4-3-3 narrow is the best. It's actually a decent shout considering Ronaldo can play there, Benzema and Morata. They were all in the best 11 according to my assistant's judgment of ability. So it's a fair shout and you can consider it. Just bear in mind this is a possession-based tactic. It would maybe suit the team a little bit more than the 4-4-2, but I feel more comfortable giving you advice on the 4-4-2 than the 4-3-3. Just because, I've tested this tactic out before. And it's actually worked quite well, but it's just, a bit inexperienced in it, so I'm going to go with a 4-4-2. I might give you some pointers on the 4-3-3. But for this episode, we're going to go with actually 3 tactics this time. And the possession-based ones are the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-3-3. Just because it's, you've got a decent shout with both tactics for this one, so I feel like I should show you guys. I'm going to quickly have to run through it though and breeze through this. So of course, for the possession-based tactics, as I always mention, control is your best bet, but counter and standard are also really good for keeping possession. You can also obviously stray into any of the other extremes such as defensive, contain, attacking or overload, but for possession, control, standard and counter are your best bets. Now, as I always mention, lower tempo, shorter passing, be more expressive and roam from positions are my preferred team instructions, but like always, again, like I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to play like this. This is just because I like to keep it simple, but you can have a lot more instructions if you are that type of manager. So you can get rid of be more expressive, you can retain possession, you can play out defense, you can work the ball into the box, you can even do things like look for overlap. You can play a higher line, which means an offside trap would be a good idea, and closing down more would even be, even better basically. Tighter marking is a bit excessive and so is get stuck in, but they are of course helpful for trying to win the ball back. Playing narrow may be also a little bit more excessive, but it is a good way to keep a tight defense and a tight team shape at the same time, bringing everyone closer, and that way you're keeping possession a bit better. But again, just for the sake of this video, we're going to be sticking to the tactics that I recommend, and this is what I recommend just based on how I play. And I would say the same thing for the 4-3-3. I'm not going to go through that again. In terms of the 4-4-2, direct style of play suits attacking and counter best. But of course, like I always mention, you can use anything else. But because Madrid's a top team, we will be going with attacking. And the instructions are really pretty much quite similar. So higher, more direct, be more expressive, and roam from positions is still the tactical instructions or team instructions that I recommend. And yeah, as you can tell, the only difference is going from lower to higher and from shorter to more direct. I'm pretty sure that's literally just a difference in styles. But again, if you are the type of manager who needs more instructions, you can get rid of roam from positions, you can run at your defense, you can pass it into space, you can even hit the ball into early crosses. These two are a little bit excessive, but you can, if you want to be crazy excessive, you can shoot on sight if you trust your players with long shots and whatnot. Clear ball into flanks is a really good instruction as well when you're trying to be direct, especially if you're playing with wingers, which we are doing in a 4-4-2. You can play a deep line and close down less for the sake of trying to draw your opposition in and hitting them on the counter, or even just for the sake of keeping a good team shape. Playing wide will help. Of course, you naturally play wider when you're playing a higher tempo and more directly, but you know, if you want to go all out, you can go wide. You can also do things such as stay on your feet to try and keep a good team shape as well. But as you can tell, too many instructions for my liking. Of course, it's all down to preferences. So we'll stick with attacking, higher tempo, more direct, and of course the other two we mentioned. So now it's just a case of finding out, you know, who to keep, who to sell, and that way we get to know our players a little bit better, and we can start making our roles as well. So in terms of our squad, Kiko Casilla, of course, a really good backup. Keylor Navas is a leading player for the division, so definitely ready for your first team. He's definitely a first team player, basically. Kiko Casilla is also the same age, though, but of course a decent backup. If you wanted, you could also sell him and bring in a youngster with potential, but I think he's more than happy playing as a backup. He's just, in my opinion anyways, I feel like because it's Madrid, but maybe just in my opinion, 74k is a little bit too much to pay for a backup goalkeeper. You might be better bringing in a youngster with potential. Now, of course, you've got 3 right backs, but Nacho is capable of playing as a centre back comfortably. He's one of the few players who can do both right back and centre back well enough. And you know, you need 4 centre backs in accordance to, you know, my rules, which are 2 players per position. So you've got Danilo and Carvajal. I think you've got good options there. Carvajal should become a leading player, so you definitely keep an eye on him. And Danilo's only considered a good player, but he can still become leading as well. So just keep an eye on both these players. If they don't fulfill their potential, you can sell them and bring in someone either with potential or someone who actually is leading and keep the other player as a backup. It's up to you. Nacho, Pepe, Sergio Ramos and Varane will make your centre-back positions. Of course, Sergio Ramos and Varane should be your centre-back pairing. Of course, Pepe is in there with a shout, but you might want to trust Varane just for the sake of him having more potential, and Pepe should be on the decline. Of course, you can really rotate this type of team. Nacho is a decent backup as a good player. He really unlikely for him to actually improve any more than he is now. He's 26 years of age, so you could sell him and bring in another youngster with potential, and that way Varane and that youngster could possibly be the centre-back pairing of the future. Marcelo and Fabian Coentrao, of course. Marcelo, one of the best left-backs in the world in real life and in the game. He is a leading player, but he is susceptible to injuries, so you might want to have a decent backup, and Coentrao is a decent backup, but he's also got problems with injuries. And again, like I mentioned about my preferences, so I would sell Coentrao and bring in a left-back who's young with potential. In the centre mid, now this is where you have decisions to make. So if you're playing the 4-3-3, you'd want 2 defensive midfielders and 4 central midfielders. And you know, if you're playing the 4-2-3-1, then you won't really care about the defensive midfielder, and you'd want 4 central midfielders and 2 attacking midfielders. So this is where you have to kind of make your decision. I'll speak somewhat vaguely about who to sell and who to keep, just for the sake of you know, how many tactics we're doing. The 4-4-2, of course, as well. Again, you wouldn't even be playing with attacking midfielders, so plenty of things to consider, basically. So Casemiro, definitely someone to keep in. For some reason, these 3 stars were only considered good. I'm pretty sure if you bring in a better judgment of ability in your staff, then he would be a leading player. But it says he's just good. But yeah, he still has potential, so again, just keep an eye on him. Vasquez is a good player, of course, decent backup. He is a kind of unique that he is one of the I think he's the only winger at the club, or natural winger. I think Bale can play as the left winger, but he's more of an inside forward because of his finishing and whatnot. But yeah, he's only considered good, so you're better off maybe selling him. He is 25 years of age, very unlikely to improve any more. So you can actually sell him and bring in a better world-class replacement for Bale, of course. He's still young himself, 26 years of age, so that's what you can see. It's a year difference, but the quality is a lot more of a difference. Toni Kroos and Modric, we don't even have to look at. You already know the star players for divisions such as Bale and Ronaldo. Kovacic is a leading player, and he's still going to improve even further. Definitely a central midfielder for the future. So yes, you're pretty much well stocked in the centre midfield department. If you're playing the 4-3-3, I'll just say that you'd need a defensive midfielder. If you're playing a 4-4-2, you've already got your 4 centre mids. Casemiro can play in centre mid comfortably. You've got Bale on the right and Ronaldo on the left. You might want to invest in the left wing position, but again, that depends on whether you would play Isco or Rodriguez on the left. They are capable, of course. James Rodriguez, maybe his best way of playing is an advanced playmaker, but he's very, very capable as a winger. Look at that crossing. Of course, really good in dribbling, first touch, passing technique, all that sort of stuff. So, not to worry. Isco, definitely a good player for the division. He is leading. You should keep him, of course. Rodriguez, leading. Marco Asensio, a decent backup with potential. So, definitely a player who you want to try and give some game time to. Benzema, we already know, sorted. Morata also sorted as well as a good backup. Mariano is probably the extra player in that 23 squad. Remember, we had 23 players, not 22, so you could sell him. He is still going to improve into a good player, but that's not good enough for the Real Madrid team, of course. So when you sell him, just try and maybe get some future money off him, you know, like a percentage of profit or percentage of next sale or something like that. So for the sake of this episode, we're just going to have to send him back down. He's not ready for the team anyways, or not good enough rather for the team. He is ready definitely for the division, just not good enough for the team. So yeah, if you're playing the 4-3-3, you might want to get rid of maybe Isco, Asensio, Rodriguez. I think Asensio is comfortable in centre midfield as well, so you don't really need to get rid of him. I actually don't think you need to get rid of anyone if you're playing the 4-3-3. It's just a case of retraining these attacking midfielders, and I think Isco and James Rodriguez would be very comfortable. If you have inside forwards Bale and Ronaldo on either wing, then you could play Isco as the left midfielder, you know, on the inside forward, and James Rodriguez is already trained for the right wing inside forward on his left. If you're playing the 4-2-3-1, you're already sorted. James Rodriguez and Isco are your players to rotate. Asensio, unfortunately, I think he has to be retrained in the central midfield department. I mean, he's natural there, but you might want to retrain his role, for example, just because, you know, you've already got 2 great attacking midfielders. But again, if you decide to play Isco and Rodriguez as, you know, inside forwards, then that would mean Asensio and someone else maybe from midfield can play as advanced playmakers. So it's all about preferences and picking who and where. Madrid are the top team, you've got top players, so you shouldn't worry. It's just about trying to fit them all into the same side, just like, you know, Zidane does. So Casemiro, of course, as we've seen and mentioned, he does play in the Madrid team, and it's depending on how Zidane likes to set up. He does alternate between the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-3-3, so it is we're pretty close to real life basically. The 4-4-2 though, if you were playing, that would mean that both Benzema, Morata, you can play them together, and Ronaldo and Bale can be retrained as wingers possibly. They are comfortable, they should be able to do the job. But you could also reconsider playing Ronaldo and maybe I think Bale as strikers if you want to play a top 2 of Ronaldo and Bale. That would be pretty crazy, but of course Benzema and Morata are hardly players you want to keep as backups. But anyways, so if we try and make our tactics now, definitely without a doubt the advanced playmaker would be here. We're playing possession based, so false 9 would be great, and Benzema's comfortable as it. I think Morata's comfortable as a false 9 too, but if he's not, you can also change the complete forward or support role whenever he's on the team. Inside forwards on both wings without a doubt, and this is where you have to make a bit of a decision who you want to play attacking and who you want to play on support. We're just going to let Ronaldo be a bit more attacking just for the sake of it. If you let him on support, Marcel is very capable of playing as a wing back on attack, so it's all down to preferences. Wing back on support here though, Carvajal will be the player who's on wing back attack, and Bale will be the inside forward on support. In the 4-2-3-1, like I always mentioned, this central midfield duo here need to be a bit more defensive than usual. So we're playing a central midfielder on defend, where Casemiro can play, and a deep line playmaker on support. Kroos or Modric can play this role very well, and I think if you want to play both Kroos and Modric together, which would be the best midfield, I mean, you might be playing someone a little bit in an uncomfortable role, I guess. You know, as you can see, Toni Kroos not best at marking. Maybe Modric can be retrained as a central midfielder, but again, not good at marking or heading. So you're better off playing Casemiro with one of these midfielders. But you could also consider playing a deep line maker on defend and a deep line playmaker on support here. That way, Kroos and Modric are together. It's a bit of a tough tactic, I guess you could say, just because there's not too great of a balance. The more balanced way is essentially midfielder on defend, but of course it means sacrificing either Cruz or Modric. So again, just something to consider. The 4-3-3, as I always mention, the best way I like to play is an inside forwards on the wings and a false 9 up top. And I like to have an anchor man with a ball-winning midfielder on support and an advanced playmaker on attack. And of course we've got the 2 wing backs playing just as like in the other formation, and yeah, that should look more like it. So I just want to mention, even in the 4-2-3-1, you'd want to keep one of your centre backs as a ball playing defender. It's not my personal preference for either tactic, but it's just because Ramos, Varane, and I think actually just Ramos and Varane both are very capable of playing this ball playing defenders, so you might want to take make use of that basically. But yeah, so you want to eventually build up to this, just put a central defender there as well, is my opinion anyways. But we have to try and consider the players. So of course, I think Casemiro should be comfortable playing as an anchor man, but he's probably better off as a defensive midfielder. Anchor man, he's very capable as. But if you want to try and use him in his favourite role, so which we'll just do that here, we can eventually move to an anchor man and defensive midfielder. You would have to probably play, if you're playing Modric and Cruz together, the support role will probably not be the ball-playing defender, ball-playing winner, ball-winning midfielder is what I'm trying to say. But we are trying to look for support roles. So deep line playmaker on support is a decent shout for Luka Modric or Cruz, either one, whoever's playing there. A roaming playmaker would be a decent shout as well. Box to box is possibly something they could do, but you would be missing out on their vision. So I think it's between 2 options, either the roaming playmaker or the deep line playmaker on support, and I would go with the roaming playmaker. I think the roaming playmaker is a box to box midfielder, but with vision pretty much. He goes up and down the same way, he gets to roam as well, and he just dribbles a little bit more. So you could play this way with that Real Madrid team. The 4-4-2, what you'd eventually want to build up to is this type of tactic eventually, I would say. Anyways, this is again just personal preferences. If we're playing a direct style of play, but again we have to consider who we have in the squad. So I think as a poacher, Morata's probably very capable of doing that. Of course, if you're playing Ronaldo, for example, and Bale, I'm sure they'll be very comfortable as playing as either complete forwards or poachers. So again, but if you are playing Morata and Benzema as your first choice strikers, Benzema as a complete forward on support would be great, and a poacher on attack for Morata would be perfect. Of course, wingers, we have to play them. You don't want to be playing a wide midfielder or a defensive winger. Wide playmaker would be great for the team, but there's an issue that wide playmaker suits possession-based sides and not direct style of play, which is exactly what we're doing. So, our only option really is wingers, and of course they have to be complemented by fullbacks. We do still have to consider a ball-playing defender. I think they work best away from the deep line playmaker, because then the 2 on the same sides is a bit much. You're probably better off playing a ball-playing defender here. But again, it depends on where Ramos likes to play. I think he likes to play on the left. Deep line playmaker on defense, perfect for Cruz or Modric. Box-to-box midfielder, I think you're comfortable. Casemiro would do that role quite well, but maybe he's better off as a ball-winning midfielder on support. And box-to-box midfielder may suit, Cruz maybe a little bit more than Modric. But again, you'd be missing out on their potential. So I'd say if you're playing Casemiro, ball-winning midfielder on support, but you can also play box-to-box midfielder, he'd be a little less comfortable with that. And a roaming playmaker on support would probably be your best shout for someone like Cruz, if you are playing Cruz and Modric together. So that's how your tactics would look. And I think we already mentioned the team as well. I think you've got a fairly good shout of which tactics you want to go for. A 4-4-2, it's a good option maybe if you want to try and win the game late on and put 2 strikers on. But again, it would be a bit of a waste if you're trying to be a possession-based side. So if you're playing direct, 4-4-2 is perfect. You would be retraining some players a little bit, but of course players such as Vasquez would be perfect. You know, he would really suit this winger type of role. I think Bale would be very comfortable playing as a left winger here. But I would say the best formations to bring out the best from your team is a possession-based side, such as the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-3-3. So if you are playing possession-based, you could actually keep both of these tactics. Of course, you'd have to be very careful about how you build a team, because you can't have 2 defensive midfielders and 2 attacking midfielders. You'd have a very large squad. So maybe you could do like Zidane, which is to keep just 1 defensive midfielder and 1 attacking midfielder. You know, he's only got Casemiro in real life as well. But yeah, I mean, you know, Madrid are top team. There's a lot of options, and we'll have a look at their future options, basically, like I always do in each episode. So Jesus Vallejo is very, very good, basically. He's going to be an incredible centre-back for you. You might want to replace Nacho with him when he's eventually ready for the team. I think he's already ready for First Division. They've just sent him out on loan for the sake of improving a little bit more. So maybe keep Nacho for this season, sell him next season, and bring on Jesus Vallejo into the first team next year. Other than that, though, it doesn't seem too good. I mean, any of these players can actually improve further. Maybe when Diego Llorente comes, or Lucas Silva, or we already mentioned about selling Mariano, but you might want to consider selling Llorente and Silva. But again, just consider their abilities and their potential. Just keep an eye on them, of course. Anyone else, though? Not very unlikely, unless some of these players surprise you, but otherwise it's just Jesus to keep an eye on. In the Real Madrid B, though, of course, you've got the players such as Martin Odegaard, advanced playmaker of the future. If you are playing a 4-2-3-1, he'll slot in seamlessly. In the 4-3-3, though, he might be better suited, as it says here, as an inside forward. He just suits the attacking midfielder role a little bit better, of course. Sergio Diaz, Fran Garcia, and Ashraf are all players to keep an eye on as well. If you're playing the 4-4-2, you've got 2 great youngsters who are capable of playing as wingers, and it would suit them very well. But of course, the 4-3-3 or the 4-4-2, Sergio Diaz would slot in amazingly well, the Paraguayan. But of course, none of these players are ready for the First Division just yet, other than Martin Odegaard. So yeah, just send them out on loan and whatnot. And again, anyone from here onwards, unlikely to suit your team, but you know, you never know, some youngsters just outgrow their potential, I guess. So that should be all for today's episode. I think we've mentioned everything from tactical analysis, I guess you could say, or tactical makeup, to the team guide, who to sell, who to keep, and which youngsters to keep an eye out on. So yeah, that will be all for today's episode. And if you did enjoy it, then of course, please do hit the like button and subscribe for more daily Football Manager 2017 content. And as always, guys, thank you all for watching.